Hello friends, tonight we're going to take a look at the exciting new Glock Model 45. I'm a little late to the party, so I'd like to thank Lee at Palmetto State Armory for tracking this gun down for me. Not only are they an online retailer, they are also my super awesome local gun store here in sunny Columbia, South Carolina, and they've always been very, very good to me, and I really appreciate it. I also should open by noting that I'm not a Glock expert. I'll do my best, as I always do, to provide you with the best information that I can, but I'm not the sort of person who is prone to studying minor details of a brick-shaped piece of metal and plastic. Though I certainly love Glocks, I just shoot the damn things and kind of tell you how it went. And I know people who really like Glocks. They are very much into the details of the pistol, and that's just not how I think. But anyway, this is the first of two reviews. I've had the gun long enough to tell you how I like it, but not long enough to abuse it in the traditional fashion. So let's discuss it today, and we can film outside in the dirt later. How does that sound? So, is this gun revolutionary? Does it break new ground the way the original Glock 17 did? Is it profoundly better than a regular Glock in some way? No, it's just a regular Glock. But this gun gets so many of the small things right that it can't help but pull you in and win your affections. So I haven't owned a Glock in years. My first pistol was a Glock, and it remained my only pistol for 10 years. I love Glocks, but I kind of got to a place where I was a little bit bored of them. So I traded my Glock in on my new life of luxurious Berettas and strange German pistols with many exciting features. But I always knew that I would own another Glock. When the Gen 5s were released, I went to buy one, but I ended up with a P10C instead. But when I saw the 45, I knew that this is something truly different in terms of feel and shooting experience. A lot has been said about the practicality of this gun, and I'll tell you up front, I don't give two shits about the practicality of a gun as long as it's fun to shoot and utterly reliable. Practicality matters, but I have other firearms for defense. I just wanted a gun that was really badass, and I think that the G45 is pretty badass. So, features. Most of what we're going to discuss is incredibly obvious and known to every creature that walks the earth. If you stop a stray possum ambling through my backyard and ask it to tell you about Glocks, it will recite this list of features. But here it is anyway, and I don't know, in case you don't happen to know any possums. So the G45, like the very popular 19X, is a 17 frame cut down to the length of a 19 slide. And it also has a 19 slide. It's largely a Gen 5 Glock, but with some improvements even over those. We have our lovely front slide serrations there. This gun also features an NDLC finish, which is supposedly harder and more wear-resistant than other post-Tennifer Glocks. So my other Glock was one of the ones with the Tennifer finish, and let me tell you, you couldn't do anything to damage that finish. When I sold it after shooting 20,000 rounds through it, it looked brand new. And I've seen online that some of the ones after that would wear a little bit more, but I haven't owned one, so I can't say definitively myself. We have an ambidextrous slide release, as we see there on either side. The mag release can be swapped to either side, but is not ambidextrous otherwise, and I think that's okay. The magazine well is flared, just like the Gen 5s, but we don't see that rather irritating scallop there at the bottom of the grip that bothered me so much. That really bugged me. This gun accepts any and all Glock mags as far as I know, unlike the 19X, which has that plastic shelf at the front of the grip, blocking the use of the Gen 5 magazines with the extended base plate. That was a factor in me deciding not to purchase a 19X, in addition to the color. It's a small thing, but it matters. This gun does have Glock's improved Gen 5 trigger. I guess it's a Glock trigger. We'll talk more about that later, but it's a Glock trigger. The grip has no finger grooves, as you can see, just like the other Gen 5s, and it's got the rough texturing also, along with the undercut beneath the trigger guard, and generally feels pretty good. Oh, and the extractor functions as a loaded chamber indicator. So, let's take a look inside. Now, I have my hands, or arms rather, fully extended over the table, so that makes guns really hard to take apart, and I apologize in advance. There we go. So inside, looks like a Gen 5 Glock. Although to me, since the last Glock that I owned was a Gen 3, this dual recoil spring looks really crazy. But we've all seen that on other manufacturers' guns anyway, like the USP comes to mind. As always, Glock's machining is really, really great. They did a really good job, as they always do. And the NDLC finish, it does feel different to me. I don't know, compared to the Tennifer, I think the NDLC maybe feels a little bit slicker, maybe. So, looks great inside. I've shot 500 rounds through it, nothing crazy, very little wear, just like you would expect. Everything is as it should be. So which guns compete with the Glock 45? Well, the direct competitors to this gun are the other high-quality striker-fired polymer pistols like the CZ P10C, the Walther PPQ, the SIG P320, the Smith & Wesson M&P, the HK VP9, the Ruger American, and I hate even mentioning it because it means I'll have to put up a picture of it, the Springfield XD. So you have some serious options. Some seriously good options. And in the coming weeks and months, I'll film some in-depth comparisons between this gun and some of those others. So Glock kind of started this striker-fired plastic gun business. And for a very long time, there was nothing comparable. And now we have piles of options. But do these others come close to the original? Well, some do, and some just really don't. Smith & Wesson is a fine gun, and they seem to run well, but they managed to make one of the worst triggers ever. And with the Springfield XD, old Springy managed to make one of the worst feeling guns I've ever tried. But that's just personal taste. The M&P is probably fine. And the P320 feels very different. The trigger is definitely better than a Glock trigger. The height of the bore compared to the Glock, though, gives the SIG a much harsher recoil impulse. And given the P320's well-documented discharge issues, suddenly the lack of a little plastic safety doodad on the trigger kind of seems like an error on SIG's part, doesn't it? The VP9 is an excellent option, but the ones that I've felt and fired, they don't have the same fit and polish as other HK pistols, and they haven't been as absurdly reliable as the hammer-fired HKs that I've owned, or Glock for that matter. They work fine, but they just aren't as nearly invincible as some of the other designs. Now keep in mind, my negative experiences with VP9s, maybe that was just the guns that I shot. You know, maybe just my friends just didn't have good luck. I don't know. So, take that with a grain of salt. So really the big competitors are the CZ P10C and the Walther PPQ. The Glock has a lower bore axis and is flatter shooting than the PPQ. Definitely. And the Glock also has more accessories than the PPQ. But the grip of the PPQ is far, far more ergonomic for most people, and the trigger is substantially better. So the PPQ's striker is pre-cocked, and that makes it so that the trigger is crisper with a more defined wall than a gun like the Glock or the P10C, where the gun is actually cocking the striker as you pull the trigger back. But again, the PPQ doesn't have the accessories, and it's just not as easy to shoot it as fast as the Glock. You can shoot the PPQ fast, but it's all relative, isn't it? But what about the P10C? Well, again, the P10C has a far more ergonomic grip than the Glock, and the trigger, again, is better. The P10C is my favorite striker-fired gun ever produced, and the PPQ is probably the runner-up. Though the Glock, it's closing in on that second spot, I think. The P10C is also flatter shooting than the Glock. The bore axis is pretty similar, but the P10C's overall shape and how high you can grip the gun, it makes it astonishingly controllable. The P10C's trigger feels a lot like a Glock trigger, frankly, only the take-up is smoother, and drawing back the striker is smoother. It also feels as though the CZ has a shorter reset, maybe, and the P10C's serrations are easier to grip, both front and rear. Between the Glock and the CZ, it's kind of a toss-up. Whichever one feels best in your hand is the winner, and they're of equal quality. You win either way. So why would you choose this over other Glocks? This might be more interesting than the prior discussion about other manufacturers. This gun isn't a compact like a 19, and it's not quite a full size like a 17. So what the hell is it? Well, like we talked about before, this gun is the same size as the 19X, which was Glock's MHS submission. That gun is excellent, by the way. This size is great for a duty gun, for cops, or the military because it has the benefits of a longer grip and the shorter slide. But more on those benefits later. So this gun is probably better than the 19X. It accepts a wider variety of magazines, it has front serrations, and it isn't an awful color. It's bigger than a standard Glock 19, and you're going to have a harder time concealing it. That big old grip is going to stick out all over the place. So if you're looking for the smallest gun possible for concealed carry, this just ain't your guy. But it's easier to shoot than the 19, and the 19 is already pretty damn easy to shoot. The slide is shorter than the 17, so you're losing that slight advantage with velocity from the shorter barrel and the slightly more substantial advantage of sight radius. But again, this gun is easier to shoot than the 17. That answer to why is trickier this time, though, but we really will get there, I promise. So I'm not saying that this gun is better than the 17 or the 19, but it's an excellent compromise between the two for some applications, like target shooting, duty use, military use, or open carry. Enough already, though. How does the Glock 45 feel and shoot? This is the most fun Glock to shoot. From the perspective of pure shooting pleasure, this Glock is a home run. It has so little recoil, so little muzzle flip that I found myself laughing as I hosed targets down at my first range session. I had experienced this prior when I fired the 19X as well, and I've been trying to put my finger on what the hell was going on, and after blasting away with the 45, I see what it is. So you have this big grip that you can really hold on to, but you have this smaller reciprocating mass on top. And when you combine these two factors, the gun just doesn't move as much and is easier to hold in place. It's hilariously simple, but it kind of feels like magic. So I'm not a good shooter. I'm pretty mediocre, but this gun is just so easy to shoot. It makes me feel like a magical bullet wizard. Several guns that I've tested lately have kind of made me feel that way, but this is the first Glock I've ever shot that elicited that sensation. Now let's discuss the trigger. Glock triggers are really bad, right? So bad, you say. Yeah, I mean, they're not the best, but their horribleness is generally vastly overstated. They're totally workable and fine, and people really get too worked up about the triggers. Now, I will say this trigger is markedly worse than the CZ P10C or the Walthers, but it doesn't in any way impede your ability to shoot well. So let's take a look at how the trigger feels. The take-up provides a little more resistance than some other guns out there. We reached the wall, which isn't really a wall, because we've got to cock that. So we've got to pull the striker back with the trigger. We push back, moving the wall, pushing the striker back. Kind of reminds me of when we see Indiana Jones pushing back a stone wall to reveal a hidden entrance to an Atlantean temple. It just doesn't feel like there's going to be quite as much pushing as there is. So there's just no traditional wall with a Glock, and I think that messes with people. But like we saw with the P10C, there's not a traditional wall there either because it moves the striker in a similar fashion. So really that means that more than a defined wall, we're looking for smoothness in the travel, and we definitely get it from the Glock. That's remarkably smooth. Yeah, it really is. So that's really where Glock has improved this trigger. In every other way, the Gen 5 trigger, it's the same trigger that we've all been slapping with our little exploratory sausages for decades, but it just feels smoother, and that really matters. Here, Glock catches up with its peers. Oh, and the classic short Glock reset is still here. The best trigger, in my opinion, is one with the shortest reset, because then you can shoot it really fast. I'm finding also that the grip works really well. The finger grooves never bothered me, but I think I do prefer the new grip. It maybe feels a little bit less rounded to me, but now that I'm used to it, I think I prefer it to prior Glock grips. It's more natural and helps me find my grip a little bit faster and therefore get off that first shot faster too. So right now, as far as reliability, it's a Glock. I put 500 rounds through it in one session. I left the store, went to the range, and put half a case through it. It doesn't care. It doesn't care one bit. It didn't malfunction today. It's probably not going to malfunction any other day. And it's worth noting that 500 rounds is really nothing. I'll keep testing this gun as always and do a follow-up video after 3,000 rounds, but just know that is far from a definitive test there. The Marksman barrel, I haven't noticed any accuracy differences in the marksman barrel versus the prior barrels. I can't even approach the inherent accuracy of really any barrel. The old barrels shot fine, the new ones shoot fine. They're all fine. I'm just glad to still have the polygonal rifling. That's my preference for a variety of reasons. And Glock's always made a good barrel. And it's kind of funny whenever you hear folks arguing about the accuracy variance between Glock barrels. It's ridiculous. It's a defensive pistol. So what would I change about the Glock 45? Really not much. Glock got it right here. I'd only change a few small things. I wish the trigger were a little lighter to help my little finger. It feels like it's about 5.5 pounds. I wish it were closer to 4.5. Am I going to modify the trigger to change it? No. I also wish that I'd gotten one of the ones with the Ameriglow Spartan sights. I really like those, but I can just install them later. Final thoughts. Buying a Glock after all these years kind of feels strange, but also like I'm coming home in many ways. Even after all this time, when I look down Glock sights, I know I'm going to do okay. I'm in good hands, and it's going to hit where I point it. Having this gun reminded me why I bought a Glock in the first place. When I was shopping for my first gun, I bought a used Glock 22 and a case of ammo, and I sunk the rest of my money into training and practice for a decade. I needed a gun that would take me through that endeavor to better myself. I didn't really care how the gun looked or really how it felt. It just had to shoot well enough and be accurate enough and run always. It wasn't clean for over a year at one point. It fired 20,000 rounds, a lot of which were plus P and a few plus P plus here and there. I never experienced one stoppage. Now I have several nice guns, and I enjoy them because I put so much initial time into training and learning. I haven't slowed down with the training, but I can appreciate guns more thanks to that first Glock. So here I am with another one, and I'm wondering, over the next 10 years, how many new things will I learn, and how many thousands of rounds will I shoot with this gun? It's kind of interesting to ponder, isn't it? It's probably not going to replace my Beretta or even come close, but it reminds me of what brought me here to this point in life, and that's worth something. I think a lot of folks who are big into shooting would tell you a similar story. So come on, little Glock, let's go shoot up what little money I have left and make some new memories. Thank you all for watching my Glock 45 video. We laughed a lot, we cried a lot, we learned some new things and made some new friends. It meant a lot to me too. If you liked the video, learned something, or simply thought I was a weird guy and would like to see more, please hit that subscribe button. It helps me out a lot. Thanks for watching, and I hope you all have a wonderful evening. I'll talk to you soon. Good night.